fourth and final of the Shaw Summer Conversation series. Why must innovation and entrepreneurship shape the future of hospitality? I'm Arun Upneja, Dean of the School of Hospitality Administration at Boston University, or Shaw, as we like to call ourselves. So let's first talk about what is entrepreneurship and who is an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are people who are solving problems, making our lives easier, adding conveniences, or possibly creating solutions to problems that we did not know we had. Entrepreneurship does not always mean new technology. It can be a new way to think. It does not always mean a startup. It can be done within a company, organization, or a university. In our School of Hospitality, we strongly believe that we are a business discipline with a focus on quality of life and enhancing human interactions. So how can tech innovation and entrepreneurship improve and enhance hospitableness and hospitality and increase our ability to connect, communicate, and create life-enhancing experiences? The discussion today is geared to hear multiple angles on the subject of the state of innovation and entrepreneurship as it applies to hospitality. Today's panel, with experts representing a variety of hospitality disciplines, including lodging, restaurants, senior living, and meetings and events, will delve into the need for innovation and entrepreneurial thinking, whether through technology or other softer areas of creativity, to help shape the future of our business. Just a quick housekeeping note. If you have questions for any of the panelists, please put them in the chat and we will get to them during the session if we can. We will also provide each panelist email in the chat so that you can reach out to them independently. So allow me to introduce our panelists. First one up is Leslie Adler, Vice President of Brand Innovation and Planning at Hilton, where she facilitates brand innovation for the global enterprise. Prior to her current position, she led the Luxury and Lifestyle Division's Customer Experience and Innovation Group and held a leadership role on Hilton's corporate strategy team. Welcome, Leslie. Dmitry Lipkin is marketing executive, entrepreneur, and investor based in Silicon Valley, California. Over the last 25 years, Dmitry has worked for a number of well-recognized high-tech companies. Dmitry also serves on advisory boards for various startups, including OpenCity, a drive-through platform powered by artificial intelligence, conversational AI named Tori. Additionally, he is a partner investor in multiple restaurants and a vodka company called Rocket Vodka. So welcome, Dmitry.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yuval Malinsky, co-founder and CEO of Massachusetts-based Vigorous Mind, leads a team of seasoned executives and scientists creating innovative products for helping primarily senior living communities and HMOs improve the quality of life for residents, members, families, and staff while saving time and money. So welcome, Yuval.
Thank you.
Next up is Tiffany Melton, Vice President of Strategic Meetings Management at SPARGO Incorporated, a full-service meeting and trade show management firm headquartered in Fairfax, Virginia. Tiffany oversees a team of business event professionals who help clients produce and execute upwards of 50 conferences and meetings annually, both domestically and internationally. Welcome, Tiffany. Dr. Satish Tarakanda is a serial entrepreneur in life sciences and healthcare sectors. Satish is an executive fellow in entrepreneurship at the Rock Center for Entrepreneurship at Harvard Business School and serves as an executive partner of Blue Cloud Ventures, a growth equity fund. Welcome, Satish. So each of you are on the innovation and entrepreneurship continuum. Visionaries, investors, adopters, and proponents, or perhaps even evangelists. It'll be great to hear about this topic from multiple perspectives. So first, let's talk about what you do in relation to innovation and entrepreneurship and its intersection with hospitality. So let's start with Yuval, Dmitry, and then Satish.
Okay, thank you. I've been an entrepreneur for more than 30 years. And over the last 20 years, I've been involved in entrepreneurial activities in healthcare, and in the last 15 years in senior living in particular. What we've developed at Vigorous Mind is a platform to engage seniors in assisted living facilities, retirement communities, nursing homes, in activities that help them maintain their brain wellness and engage them. And in the last 18 months, especially as a result of COVID, we've been involved also in the development of a robot to alleviate loneliness. And I will describe more what this robot does and how it does that later on.
Dmitry, you're up next.
Yes, so I've been an entrepreneur working in the high-tech industry now for the last 25 plus years, serving on the boards of various startup companies, focusing on various technologies from B2B, B2C, enterprise, but really the focus here is entrepreneurship and automation on a company that I'm on the board called Open City, located out of Boston. We have some MIT engineers, and what we've developed is an AI voice conversational platform called Tori that takes your order through the drive-through, processes it just like it would be a conversation with a human, and then the person would drive around, pick up their order, pay for food, drinks, etc., and move on. And it has become something that I think will become a mainstay in all fast food or even restaurants that don't have drive-through capabilities, where Tori can answer the basic questions when people call in and ask for menu, times of day, private parking, or whatever else people are looking to when they speak to restaurants. And right now, as mentioned earlier, there's a huge labor shortage when it comes to hospitality and food-related businesses, where there's just not enough people. For whatever reason, COVID's had a huge impact on this industry. So with the innovation and implementation of platforms like Tori, we're making lives a lot easier for the workers, for the operators, and most importantly, enhancing the consumer experience. So I think it's here to stay, and we're very excited about the future of our company.
Satish?
Thanks, Arun. My name is Satish Tarakanda, and I've been an entrepreneur in the healthcare and life sciences space for well over 20 years or so. But over the last 15 years, 15 plus years, I've spent a lot of time working with entrepreneurs, mentoring them either through Harvard Business School or through another program I founded called Scale Up, or through Mass Challenge or other accelerators. And they span across industries, from B2B to B2C and others. And I also spend a lot of time, through early stage investing or late stage investing, and also active on boards. And two areas I'm really focused on right now is the intersection of healthcare and life sciences, and using the data from the healthcare side to influence a lot of life sciences activities, such as clinical trial optimization, patient recruitment using a lot of identified and de-identified patient data, decentralized trials, where due to COVID now there's a big movement to push trials to the homes of patients as opposed to going to hospitals. That's one big area. The other area that I'm focused on quite a bit is on the use of technology for automation, right? IoT or wearables and things like that, to extract a lot of data from either patients or others for use in other areas. And another area, I serve on the board of a company which is focused on bringing a lot of intelligence and automation to chillers, coolers, commercial buildings, HVAC systems, and things like that, which is traditionally been a fairly conservative industry, but is now moving to quite a dramatic amount of change. So looking forward to the discussions today.
Thank you. So Tiffany and Leslie, in your fields, what do you see as the largest problems to solve or needs to fill in either in the near term or perhaps in 10 years in the future? And how has an innovative mindset helped you in imagining and developing solutions? So let's start with Tiffany and then Leslie.
Good morning. So, I think in the events industry, really in the short term, as others have mentioned, it's really how do we overcome a significant and sizable labor shortage. Unfortunately with COVID, many people have left the industry, and some of those individuals, unfortunately, are not coming back. So, as we return to live in-person events, it's how do we staff those events on the vendor side, on the venue side, to still deliver, a great experience for those that are attending the event. And I think it's also still to a degree consumer confidence, both on the individual, me as an attendee, am I comfortable traveling? Am I comfortable being around a large number of other people? And conversely, for companies that are sending staff, is how do I, safely do that? How do I allow my employees to travel, and recognizing the risks that are associated with doing so? So I think really that in the short term in the events industry is the problem to solve. But in terms of an innovative mindset, I think being continually curious is really what it boils down to. It's a great trait to develop. It's one that you can develop. I think people sometimes think, oh, I'm not creative. And I don't subscribe to that belief that one cannot develop their creativity gene, if you will, over time. And I think it's about asking questions. It's considering the why before the how. I think we can be quick to want to solve a problem, but don't take the time to ask, is that actually the problem that should be solved in the first place? So, as an example, I've deployed Amazon Alexa at large scale events for years now. And that really was born out of how do we deliver excellent customer service on site at events with limited human capital that can travel to events. So it's simply about asking questions.
Thank you. Leslie, how about you?
Great, thanks so much. And thanks, Arun and Leora, for having me. It's great to be here and with all of you, and great to meet the other panelists and listen to the experiences they've had. So thanks so much for bringing us all together. It's a three-part question, so I'll go ahead and try to answer each of those. On the short-term side, some folks have already talked about labor, so I'll pivot a little bit. I think something not only important for the hospitality industry, but really for every industry today, is a significant focus on ESG. Environmental and social governance, and the innovation that needs to come with that. It is a huge priority for Hilton. We have our 2030 Travel with Purpose goals. It is front and center with everything that we do. It's our goals today, although we keep refining them to be more and more aggressive, are really to double the investment in social impact that we do between now and 2030, and to half the environmental impact that we have between now and 2030. And these are things that every industry needs to be focused on, and we really are. Hilton today leads the hospitality sector, so both hotels, cruise lines, and resorts in terms of our placement on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. So it's something that is incredibly important to us, and you'll see continued innovations there, some launching later this year, but really continued focus there. In terms of the next 10 years, that's a very hard question. I think, one of my favorite quotes is one by Bill Gates, where he says, it is incredibly difficult, to estimate what the change is going to be in the next 10 years. People always underestimate the change that is going to happen in the next 2 years and overestimate the amount of change that's going to happen in the next 2. So I can't tell you what 10 years from now will look like for Hilton. What I can tell you, which sort of goes to the third part of the question, is that at every single intersection and whenever we think about it, customer experience is always at the center of everything we do. What we most care about is delivering wonderful hospitality for our guests. Hilton is hospitality, and we care about really delivering that, at every interaction that you have, whether it's before you leave your home or once you're on property with us.
Thank you, Leslie, and very good point. It's difficult to forecast even 2 years rather than go all the way. So let's sort of have some fun with the next couple of questions. This is for everyone. Over the last 18 months, we have seen a lot of new ways of doing things. So I want to ask everyone, what is the best innovation you've seen happen during COVID times? And what do you think will not stick around? So let's start with Satish.
Thanks, Arun. I think I'll aside from the obvious ones of mRNA technologies for vaccines and things like that, I think two areas stood out for me for a lot of innovation occurring, right? One is in my space around telehealth and use of wearables to and virtual reality and others to make care more accessible, right? And associated with that, I think the other thing which was there is, remote and continuous monitoring of patients. I think that was a big area of innovation, I think. And the second area is, as the digital transformation occurred in remote meetings, et cetera, the using virtual reality and others to make conferences, and the collaboration occur much more seamlessly, right? Those are two areas that I've seen a lot of innovation in. There are obviously many other areas in medical devices and others, but these two jumped out in the areas that I'm working on. And with regard to what I think won't stick around, I think I've seen a lot of innovations around, using bumper tables to socially distance people at restaurants and using, pool noodles to tie around your head to keep away from you. I think those are things probably you won't be seeing quite soon, I think. So that's my 2 cents.
I've made a note, Satish, not to tie around noodles around me anymore. Fantastic. So Tiffany, what do you think?
So I sort of have a two-part answer. I think in general, COVID obviously was a society-wide disruption. And so on one hand, I think just the massive amount of new business, new startups, very small scale solopreneurs who had to do something to bring in money, to, large scale new startups, we're going to see the impact of that, for decades to come. I selfishly, the innovation that I personally enjoyed most is contactless delivery and curbside pickup. Not gonna lie, as someone who is very busy and kids and all that sort of thing, it's quite easy to just be able to drive and pick up what you need and go. So I certainly hope that sticks around. What I don't think will stick around, I would say, is social distancing measures, and this may be an unpopular opinion. I think in the long term, I don't think, at least in American US culture, mask wearing. I really don't see that staying around for years and years and years as compared to some other cultures.
Thank you, Tiffany, and hopefully the restaurant industry has good news in the future for you, that we'll go one step further and actually do automated delivery to your home, so you don't even have to sit in your car.
Exactly.
And come. Okay, thank you. And how about Yuval?
So about 18 months ago, in January, when COVID was already taking a toll in Asia, I attended a conference via Zoom, which I think is one of the most important innovations that will stay with us. And in that conference, I saw a robot that was used in Singapore and in South Korea, in hospitals. It was an Israeli robot, and I'll show you what the robot looks like. This robot is able to navigate and was used in those hospitals to take the temperature and other vitals in rooms of COVID patients, so that the staff, who, like here, was short on PPE, wouldn't have to expose itself and take the risk. And I said to myself, if this robot can go to any room in the hospital, why don't we use it in senior living? And what we started developing, one of the problems that the senior living industry has always had, but became really severe, is the problem of loneliness. Seniors could not see and hug their loved ones for months. They couldn't leave their rooms. They couldn't see other people in the building. It was really creating a terrible situation. So what we developed was software, and this is still, we're developing parts of that now. We just got a grant from the NIH to continue the development. Families can schedule on the website of the assisted living facility or nursing home a time for visiting grandma. So they say, let's say today at 3 o'clock, they want to visit grandma at room 114. The robot, 5 minutes to 3 o'clock, launches itself and navigates its way to grandma's room. Now, the family member that scheduled the meeting gets a Zoom link, and when the robot reaches room 114, he calls grandma and says, hey, grandma, I'm at your door, open the door. And when she opens the door, she can see, like you see here, the child or the grandchild or the son or daughter. And the robot moves into the room, sits down, or grandma sits down, and they sit together and spend time. They can play the Vigorous Mind activities, which are remotely controlled by the family member, who is a lot more computer literate than grandma. So she can listen to her favorite music or play games or do whatever she wants. And then at the end of the meeting, the robot navigates its way back to the charging station. But what the NIH wanted us to do, which is also COVID specific, is to disinfect the robot. So we're building a little cabinet where the robot in closed doors gets UV and is being disinfected before going to the next visit. So I think this will stick, and I think we'll talk about that later, that this could be something that will help a lot of nursing homes and assisted living facilities.
Fantastic. Leslie, where has technology and digital innovation benefited your organization as we transitioned into and out of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's not just into and out of the pandemic. I mean, these are things Hilton's been thinking about for a really long time. So, I would say the two major areas, that I'll talk about today are digital key and really our contactless technology when it comes to payments. I mean, these are things that we have been, putting in place for years, and something that was nice about it, really looking at the landscape of what is the interaction between, physical and digital, and what do our guests want in that sort of, all-encompassing experience, right? Like we all know, nobody can go anywhere without one of these today. So how do we make sure that it's really integrated into everything we do and making it, a very hospitable arrival when you come to a hotel? So digital key is something, and digital check-in has been something that we've been working on for many years. It allowed during the pandemic to seamlessly transition. Germaphobes like my parents, when they went to, stay at a hotel to visit my sister, didn't have to worry about talking to anybody. They could easily check in, from their phone when they were on the road, get to the hotel, go in the, side door using their digital key, go into their room, and never have, an experience, having to speak with anybody. And I think something like that made the transition incredibly easy for Hilton. I think, something else to talk about when we talk about things like this, when we think about entrepreneurship, is also scalability, right? One of the things that's really interesting, right, when you're talking about something like digital key in Hilton, we're at 6,500 hotels today. And, there's new innovations that come up, but you also have to figure out how can we integrate it into all of our systems, in all of our hotels, for millions of users to do every day. And, really, I think it's something to keep top of mind when you're thinking about these types of innovations, is how they can progress forward and the scalability that's needed. The other one I just mentioned before is also, contactless payment. I think that was a huge, something we'd been working on for a long time, and something that was hugely important to be able to leverage in each of our hotels. When again, at the beginning of the pandemic, we weren't sure if, COVID lived on our groceries or, we had no idea. Making everything contactless, especially in the beginning, made it so that we could really continue, to lead forward and didn't take a step back.
Thank you, Leslie. Dmitry, I want to bring you into the conversation because when we were talking earlier, you had talked about this elephant in the room question, which is automation of work. And is that going to take away jobs, and including AI as well? And what are the benefits? And, you heard Tiffany talk about, and we are all hearing about the shortage in the hospitality industry. And Yuval mentioned how he's going to bring in people because of the loneliness. So what do you think? What is your take on this issue?
Yeah, thank you, Arun. I agree with the panelists, and I think it's really important to see what, being an innovator, being an entrepreneur, you're sort of take the lead on anticipating what the industry's various markets, various verticals need, and then trying to figure out what are the barriers to entry, and then what's going to be the ultimate solution that's going to make people's lives easier, right? I mean, that's the ultimate, is that what doesn't exist today that we can make our lives easier professionally, personally, etc. And I think with the implementation and continuation of, commercializing AI when it comes to voice recognition and serving people, it's really important to understand that we're not taking away people's jobs. We're actually making lives easier for the people who are working at these establishments. And as we mentioned previously by a few panelists, including myself, there's a huge labor shortage when it comes to the hospitality. Restaurants, drive-throughs, etc. There's not that many people that are getting into this. I don't know if you saw in the news recently, McDonald's is going to increase their wages to attract more people, to keep the people that are there, because frankly, they have to keep up, right? They just simply have to keep up. And I think implementation of AI will only make lives easier. And it's been already proven by talking to the people that work at these establishments, the ones that operate these establishments, and the consumers that are using it, that this is something that is very much welcomed, instead of looking at it like you're taking jobs away from people, which is understandably the initial knee-jerk reaction, but it's quite the opposite.
Thank you. So Tiffany, in terms of automation and in the meeting and conference industries, how do you see that playing out? Do you think that's going to continue increasing? You mentioned earlier that you have the worker shortage. So are you trying, is there anything happening in the meeting industry to sort of alleviate those concerns, the worker shortage concerns?
So I think automation in the events industry is interesting because you can sort of tackle it from a couple of different approaches. Automation in the sense of making it easier, more efficient for planners and show organizers, versus automation that helps the ultimate end user, consumer, attendee. Obviously, automation for planners and organizers has certainly made everyone more efficient and able to focus on higher thought tasks, right? There's no more manual data entry. There's no more uploading and downloading of files. There's APIs that connect systems, and it all happens very seamlessly. But I think as planners, you have to move beyond kind of that base level of automation, because to a degree, that's not innovative anymore. That is just the de facto standard, or should be, if it could be. And so I think in the sense of automation in other industries that can ultimately improve the customer experience for the events world. So, sort of, for instance, marketing automation, how can you take all of these available automation tools to create a very personalized custom experience for a unique user when you have data that you can harness that tells you everything you need to know about that particular individual. So, I think it's more of that kind of level of automation that ultimately can help the events industry. I personally am excited about what AI and voice technology can do. We have quite a number of clients whose events are 30, 40, 50,000 attendees with hundreds of hours of content being held at dozens of venues. And so how does the average attendee distill all of that to create what will be their on-site experience? And I think that's where, the power of AI and a well-tuned algorithm, and perhaps a tool like Tori, could come into play. And you ask and say, hey, what should I go see next? And they say, Tiffany, we think you'd be interested in XYZ session. And by golly, it was spot on, and you're like, this is fantastic. So I think that is an exciting development for the events industry moving forward.
I think that is an excellent point. I've been to so many conferences where there are just tons and tons of sessions going on in parallel, and I want to go there, I want to go there. So it'll be great to have AI create a prioritized list for me. I can of course make changes to it, but that's fantastic. So I want to bring in Satish into the conversation. At the beginning you said, or you talked about all the developments that we're taking in the healthcare industry, and particularly going to people's homes as well. And you heard all the panelists, they're talking about the worker shortage, at least in the hospitality industry. So what's your take? What is the medical side, are you increasing the use of labor, which is going to take away from other sectors? Or are there some other things that are happening? What's your take on it? You are muted, by the way. Yeah.
Sorry about that. So if you look at automation, right? There's a couple of different kinds of automation, right? One is aggregating data or things like that from devices which are passive and are in the background, or automation of physical activities in predictable or structured environments, right? And if you further peel that, there are a couple of things. One is cognitive activities which require some complex processing or manual processing, and some are routine and non-routine. So a lot of the focus in our industry has been on automating the routine tasks, whether they're manual or which require some complex level of thinking. And I'll give you a couple of examples which may, one may overlap in the space you're talking about. Is I'm working with a number of companies which are trying to use social determinants of health, right? Where people live, work, how they were born, or all sorts of information to affect care, right? To improve the quality of care from that perspective. But where is the automation coming in there is how they are aggregating that information. Some of it is very explicit, right? You get, where you're living or things like that is, one time or things like that. But also using automation and various amount of sensors to kind of get a lot of data, right? To improve not only the quality of care or efficiency as you looked at, but also look at it as new drivers for either revenue growth or cost reduction, right? Those are the three vectors you always look for: revenue growth or cost reduction, or the third one is, compliance is usually the third vector. And, cost usually accounts for efficiency, and efficiency can also be a driver for revenue, right? I'll give you another example, which is slightly different. One of the pieces of technology which is very interesting is for mental health and counseling and psychiatric help and mental therapists, right? When they spend time with the patients, oftentimes physicians spend out of a week, they spend 3 or 3.5 days in sessions with patients, but spend a day and a half or day writing down notes from each of these sessions to type them up or things like that. So now interesting technology is coming in where, using natural language processing, they automate that process of all the conversations. Not only do they automate, but are also using AI to automate the reports or the findings. Now that's a automation and monetization strategy right there. But the derivative ones are, you can use that same data now for compliance perspective, right? Now it's, if you automate that, it's freeing up the physician's time, right? And that's a revenue enhancer for the physician or cost reduction, whichever way you look at it. But from a compliance perspective, now you're using the same data to report to your payer or insurance company to talk about the sessions, document and audit trail. From an insurance company perspective, now you can look across many physicians to look at that data and automate it so that you can get best practices that you can guide, right? So again, number of things going on in the space. I spoke about telehealth and others, but absolutely going after these. And I think one aspect is automation may not actually result in immediate increase of revenues or depression of costs or things like that. I spoke of an earlier example of automating HVAC systems and chillers and coolers and other kinds of climate control. Those are investments you make, but the payoff comes a little bit later when you're saving 40% of cost from going and manually intervening with some system if you have a predictive way of maintaining or predictive way of getting to failure or maintaining things. So there's a number of activities we are seeing in my space, some of which, the same concept may be applicable in the hospitality industry.
Thank you, Satish. And so I'm just going to have one follow-up comment on what you talked about, this automation of the notes of the physician. So, there is a sort of a similar parallel in the hospitality industry where in the hotels you go and check in. And now that process is almost routine, pretty much in most cases. Yeah. And we still have seen, there is a pushback to having kiosks. Many years ago, they added in kiosks and they have not worked. And, it has been a very slow process. And that's because in hospitality, we are more traditionalists. And we say, if you're going to be checked in by computers and there's going to be no human interaction, then, where is the hospitality coming in? So I think from a hospitality perspective, if the physicians are saving time, then I think you'll hear that from hospitality. We would rather have that physician talk more to the patient rather than just go out and increase their productivity by just seeing more patients. But, that's kind of the hospitality perspective on that. So I want to sort of switch gears and go back to Leslie. So how do hotel companies, hospitality companies, senior living facilities, or whatever it is, foster innovation from within the organizations, from their own employees? I think that's a big part of how innovations are going to come about within companies, not from outside all of these startups.
I absolutely agree. I think at the end of the day, most innovation starts with a problem statement, right? What is the challenge that we're faced with? And at the end of the day, anybody that is working, day in and day out on something is going to be the one best equipped to see the problem, right? I can't, sitting in my corporate office, it would take me months to figure out something that somebody that works, at our front desk every day and sees the same problem occurring all the time could come up with as a challenge. And then it's really just using a process from there of figuring out, okay, what is our problem statement? What can we see? How can we iterate on it? What discovery can we do in order to start to get to a solution and then to, deliver it and operationalize it at scale. But to me, I've said this on many internal calls that we've had as well. One of our executive team members, I sat on a panel where, he asked me, what can we do to participate in innovation and do innovation? And my answer is always the same. In any corporate office with any of us, there's no wizard that sits behind the curtain. Innovation happens every day at the ground level with you, whatever problems you see them in front of you, think about a better way to solve them. And I think, the same is definitely true for, all of the folks that work in our hotels. They see the problems. They're the ones that can help us really address what are the challenges. And, I think creating a culture of innovation throughout an organization is really, really important to make sure that you continue to develop, those next innovations, because nobody can do it alone. There is no wizard.
Thank you. So let's, Yuval, you've talked about AI and you've talked about robots and how you have this robot. So let's sort of combine this robots with the worker shortage. So have you seen any developments, or do you see robots as a viable solution to the shortage of employees in hospitality or in senior care industry?
Absolutely. I think that there is a shortage today of 1 million nurses in healthcare, and nurse assistants, the number is 3 million or something like that. And I don't think anybody can see a solution, especially with immigration issues happening quickly, and the number of seniors 10,000 people turn 65 every day in the US. The number of seniors will grow from 56 million today to 72 million by the end of 2030. So I think that robots would play a major role. And obviously what you try to do is take away the mundane and repetitive activities, which can be done by a robot that never gets bored. But I'll give you a couple of examples. One is the robot that I was talking about. 2 or 3 months into COVID, the federal government and states realized that loneliness is a major issue. So what they did was to tell nursing homes and assisted living facilities, here are $3,000, go buy 30 tablets and give it to the seniors so that they can communicate with their loved ones. Well, guess what? This caused 2 new problems. The first one is seniors, average age in assisted living is 87. They don't use technology and they're scared of technology. So instead of the tablets becoming a solution, they became a problem because now families read in the newspapers that they have tablets in all of these places and they started calling the facilities, why can't we talk to grandma? So it added 2 issues. One is scheduling a time for someone from the staff to go and take the tablet into the room of the resident and sit with them and make sure that the Zoom is working. And instead of saving time, it caused them a major problem. And this is where the robot solves the problem because it is autonomous navigating. It goes there by itself. The senior doesn't have to do anything. All the senior has to do is look at the screen and communicate with their loved one. And the robot goes back and does all it needs to do in terms of disinfection and charging, etc. Another example is another technology which I'll show you. And this is happens to be another Israeli technology. It's called OBI. OBI is a projector that has software and sensors in it. The projector projects a picture on the table or on the floor or on the wall. And when you touch parts of the picture, they react. And that company developed the technology for children. They have about 250 games. It's used in 10,000 locations, 80 countries. McDonald's is now offering it in 1,200 of their stores, and they have an agreement for 30,000. So all the franchisees are slowly adopting it so that kids, when they come to the store, they can jump and play and so on instead of using the playgrounds that they had before. And obviously for winter, it's a much better solution. So some people in senior living saw it and said, why can't we use this for senior living? This way we project it on a table and the residents can play by themselves. Again, the shortage is in the staff. So what OBI can do is you can schedule at a certain time that it will start a game of bingo. And 4 residents will sit in around the table and start playing. Or other games which are more cognitively challenging and so on. So this became something which is a real time saver for the staff. So just another example.
Thank you. So I want to bring in Dmitry next. Dmitry, what you're doing with the AI, with the order taking, obviously clearly replaces a human being, which right now with the labor shortage, we don't even have. But, you know, one of the sort of comments we have on the questions we have on the chat is, as we continue to automate, how concerned are you about losing the traditional human touch part of the service? So we have these 2 perspectives here. One is losing the human touch, which we in hospitality really want, and we think we are very passionate about. And then on the other hand, we have the labor shortage. So how do you balance all these different perspectives?
Yeah, thank you for the question, the person that raised it, and I was going to address it regardless of this conversation, because I think it's very important to talk about this. By no means am I a proponent anyway that have AI or robots take over the world and eliminate human interaction or human touch. I think that is a very, very bad move, at least from my perspective. When I personally, I'm an own investor in multiple restaurants. I do not want robots serving my food, but I certainly would like automation to be in place if I'm going through the drive-through to take my order, process it efficiently, process it correctly, and do it in a way that's enjoyable, right? That's a perfect application, a use case where AI is effective. I don't want the same thing when I go to my restaurants, or I go to any restaurants for that matter, that, it's the friendliness, it's the awareness of who you are, knowing where you like to sit, and all those things cannot be replaced by taking away that human touch, the human element, that comfort, that greeting, right? That interaction that will take place. So by no means do I want AI to take over, but I also think that there's very purposeful applications for AI, not only in restaurants or drive-throughs, but in hospitality, etc., airlines, what have you, that increases our user experience, but also enhances the operators and business owners to be more productive, to be even more profitable. So I'm a huge proponent of keeping human touch where it's applicable.
If I may add something, last week I was in a nursing home where the robot is being used, and one of the things they're doing is it has a tray. So now they put glasses of water, and the robot moves from one room to another and distributes the glasses of water to the residents. Now, this is not a restaurant, but this is something that instead of a human doing it, the robot is doing it, and it's saving time. Interestingly, this robot is also every morning starting the day with a song. Oh, what a beautiful morning, or there are a couple of songs, and it goes and visits each resident and wakes them up with this song. And I was told by the staff that when one day they had a problem with their Wi-Fi and the robot didn't show up, the residents started complaining. Why didn't I get my wake up with the robot?
Yeah, so, it's very interesting that robots are, I was about to say robots are not going to have a bad day. So for them, it'll always be a happy morning. But clearly, this one particular robot did not have a very good day.
But I think also, if I may add one more thing to Yuval's point, and that is that I think that our robots and use cases and applications for robots, such as the one he mentioned in the retirement home, and it's also something that's entertaining, right? It's new, it's kitschy because they just haven't seen that before. No one really has. I think another application is, for example, in hospitals, they're now using robots to disperse medication. So a robot comes in, gives you your medication, they knows who the patient is, it's on a tray, you take it, and then on you go. Nurse, of course, follows up. But there's a shortage of a workforce everywhere where nurses can't go to every room as fast as a robot can, and then it becomes, of course, an issue of accuracy and, of course, safety and other factors. But certainly robots have a play in that. That certainly, if I'm a patient in a hospital and a robot's coming in to disperse my medicine, I don't have really a negative feeling or connotation that a human didn't do that, right? As long as eventually a human's going to come in and check up on me because the robot can't do everything.
Right. So I want to bring in Tiffany into the conversation. Tiffany, you're in meetings and conventions, and obviously that was very, very hard hit because everything was shut down over the last 18 months. So, we all came up with alternatives to meetings and conventions. So my question to you is, how optimistic are you that, has there been a fundamental shift in the way people meet, or are you optimistic that by another year and a half, that things are going to be back to the go-go days of 2019 and before, and everyone is just ready to meet? So what is your perspective? And sort of, I want to add in the human touch element. Obviously, the human touch is kind of sort of missing when you are online versus when you're meeting and shaking hands and hugs and so forth.
Yeah, so I think for the most part, we will return to live face-to-face events. I personally don't believe that Zoom and its counterparts are the end-all be-all solution for communication, collaboration on that scale. I do think that those serve very good purposes. Will we see certain events no longer happen in person, or certain types of meetings? I definitely think so. But do I think that we will be in this, semi-permanent virtual world forever? Absolutely not. I think you sort of hit the nail on the head, Arun, that, as a species, humans crave interaction, right? We want to be around others. We want to connect. We want to collaborate. We've been doing that literally for eons. I don't see our very nature as human beings changing so vastly that we're not going to meet face to face. I personally think it's going to be, toward 2023 before there's some semblance of normalcy with the live in-person events. But I have already done live in-person events this year, so it is happening. I think to what degree depends upon the industry and the impact of globalization on that particular event, and how large of a contingency they had international delegates attending the event. But I do think we will get back to normalcy. I think, will companies streamline the volume of events that they send employees to, that they are sponsors at, that they exhibit at? Absolutely. I mean, just from a cost perspective, companies are having to, relook at those budgets and those professional development dollars. But then I think that sort of forces event organizers to demonstrate what the value of their particular event is, and elevate what is happening at that event. Because I think, what happens in the hallways, on shuttle buses, in airplanes, and seats and lounges is not going to change. That is where deals are made. That is where, doctors talk about clinical trials and, continue to innovate on scientific discovery. I think that will continue to happen.
Thank you, Tiffany. Satish, I want to bring you into the conversation. One thing that panelists talked about is that in the hospitality industry, we have this need for human touch and human interaction. And again, the need to look very carefully at developments and sort of add these routine tasks where we don't think human interaction is needed, but be very careful about not to automate human interaction. So you are involved in so many different startups. And obviously, not every startup is, idea is going to lead to a startup, is going to lead to a success. So how do you know, when you hear an initial idea, how do you know whether this is worth pursuing or not? What goes through your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. At the very obvious level, right? You look at whether this is a disruptive idea or not, right? Obviously, is there a white space in the market that this idea is applicable to? So, and with regard to that, one key thing that I look for when I look at an idea there in that space is the market growing? Or if it is a stagnant market, right? The growth is very, very small. And does the market have a lot of heterogeneity, in the sense, if it is growing and there are a lot of challenges and unknowns in there, there is opportunity for multiple players to look at, right? So once you qualify whether the customers are willing to pay for a particular solution you come up for that idea, whether the market is growing and things like that, you next look at two other elements, right? Is there a solution which is differentiated enough, right, in that market? And does that solution come with a business model and a market strategy that is very viable and executable, right? Does it make sense to have the problem statement? How big is the problem? What is the problem? Why is the problem existing, and why don't current solutions work? Those are the 4 questions I ask first when an idea comes up, right? So if it meets those, and by the way, the size of the problem is not the size of the market, right? It's the size of the problem. It's a fairly big problem. And then you look at a solution which is differentiated, and how does your business model align with it, right? Those are the kinds of things I look at as I'm looking through making an investment decision or looking at and taking an idea further myself, right? Those are the initial filters, and then obviously you go down and do a lot more customer discovery and other types of things. But that's my initial screen.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I hope everyone was listening. Very good advice there. So let's get imaginative. And this is just a very, very quick, lightning fast question. Let's start with Leslie. If you could invent and bring about one innovation, what it would be? It doesn't have to be based in reality. What would you want to see invented?
Mine is definitely not based in reality, and it's incredibly selfish. But being, and maybe Tiffany will agree with me, being a working mom with a toddler, I would love to have a time machine that only I can have. I don't want anybody else to have it, because then it defeats all purposes. But it would definitely make my life easier to be many different places at once, and to be able to do all the things I want to do all at the same time. So.
Fantastic. Now, in the 60s, there was a TV series that did invent something similar to that, Beam Me Up, Scotty. So let's hope that these guys come up with that invention. Tiffany, what do you think?
Honestly, I was going to echo Leslie and say I would invent the ability to clone myself, and no one would be none the wiser.
Fantastic. My wife sometimes does tell that kids, when they were small, that she has eyes in the back of her head. So, and for a long time, they did believe her. I don't think in 20s they believe her anymore. Yuval, what do you think?
I like Leslie's idea, actually. I would adopt it too, but staying with robots and our shortage, I would like us to have a robot that has gives a feel of a human, so that people really can connect with it, and then it will really become a solution to a lot of problems, because what we're doing now is still very limited. But from our industry, if we could have a robot that would do what the hard work of the nurse assistant is, to help with lifting seniors and washing them and doing these things, if we could have that and make the senior feel that it's a human like feeling, that would be fascinating to me.
Thank you. So in the interest, we are running short of time. So I have one question each for Dmitry and Satish. Let's start with Dmitry. Any advice? What advice would you give to an emerging entrepreneur?
I think the biggest, there's lots of advices I would give them. But I think the biggest one is really have a clear understanding of what you're getting into, right? The commitment to be an entrepreneur, it sounds very sexy and it sounds very glamorous, because we hear about the ones that are successful. For everyone that's successful, there's hundreds and thousands of that are not. And it's not because they're not working as hard or that their ideas are bad. It's just incredibly, incredibly difficult to start a company, to get funded. The hours that you put in, the effort, blood, sweat, and tears, it is the only thing that you literally do 24/7. Because when you're an entrepreneur and you're a co-founder or a founder, it is your baby, right? And nobody wants it more than you, because no matter how big the company is or small, the CEO and the executive team have the biggest responsibility versus the employees, because they get compensated more, they have a bigger stake in the game, and it's just the way it is. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, and I highly encourage people, the entrepreneurship is what this country is built on, right? This world is built on that, but it's difficult. And you have to have the right time, place, idea. You have to have right people back you up, which is most importantly, because most people don't have the money to start their own company. And I highly advise that you don't use your own money to start a company, but it just takes a huge effort to do that. So I highly encourage it, but caveat emptor, buyer beware of what you're getting into.
Thank you, Dmitry. Satish, you have the last word. What advice do you give to entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so leaving aside the business stuff of market size ideas, right? Like there are 2 or 3 sort of guiding things. When I look at screening companies, the number one thing, beyond the market, which is the second one, is I look at team, right? So one piece of advice I'd give you is surround yourself with like the smartest people, who are probably smarter than you, or, that is number one, right? Number two is, the risk of stasis is, far greater than the risk of making a wrong decision, right? So the one piece of advice I'd give you is, you can move faster, you can make a wrong decision, but you can backtrack. But, don't sit and like wait for the optimal answer a lot of times, right? You have to act with imperfect information. And then the third is, like as entrepreneurs, we are going to be wrong like 70 to 80% of the time, right? I can, in my experience, I was wrong a lot more, probably 90%. But to have a level of humility to be able to acknowledge that and move forward, right? I think those are three sort of high-level pieces of advice I'd give you. And then the fourth one is, I think the measure of success that you set for yourself is, I always thought the day I become redundant is the day I'm successful. So it goes back to surrounding yourself with people, who are a lot smarter than you, right? So those are the high-level pieces of advice I'd give anybody as an entrepreneur, beyond business basics and things like that.
One last one, if I may. I know we're running out of time, but I think this is an important one, and that is, don't ever give up. And just because 10 people said no, the 11th one will say yes. And just continue your perseverance, because if you believe in what you have, then others will follow. And it just takes one. All it takes is one person to write that check to further your dream. So don't ever give up.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. A round of applause for all our panelists. Sincere thanks from the faculty, staff, students of Shaw listening today. Thank you for taking the time to speak at this session. For those listening, if you would like to continue the conversation with our panelists, or ask them questions, the emails are at the beginning of the chat, so you just have to scroll through. One very quick announcement. I'm very pleased to share that this fall, we are currently enrolling for one of our newest concentrations, Innovation and Entrepreneurship, with a slate of interesting courses at Shaw. We look forward to welcoming students focusing on creating positive and memorable hospitality experiences. So please come to our website. We are still open at this time. And thank you for attending this finale of our summer conversation series. We'll be back in the fall with a robust and innovative lineup of talks and events in celebration of our 40th anniversary year-long celebration. Check our website and your emails for invitations and updates. If you would like to catch any of the prior talks, rewatch them, or share them with colleagues and friends, all the recordings are available on our website, including this one will be available in a couple of days. Until then, enjoy your summer. We look forward to staying in touch with you. Thank you.